Welcome to another episode of the Saddle Up Show with Shaad and Destin, brought to you by Horseshoe Huddle, Fan Nation, and of course Sports Illustrated. Man, I'm excited. I'm excited because OTAs is here. Although everyone's frustrated, we haven't had a chance to see anything yet. There's been some whispers in the wind. We're going to get to that a little bit later. But like we start off every show, my guy Destin is here. And how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. This little hiatus we have until OTA news is gonna get out and training camp news is gonna get out is it's a little rough. Gets a little stagnant. I understand that, so we're all gonna just keep trying to grind and bring you as much information as possible. Also, just want to shout out. I'll do this at the beginning and the end. I have a pretty big piece coming out tomorrow. One that I've really spent the entire off season working on that I'm really excited for. I'm going to be releasing a piece that's going to cover the head coaching search all the way up to OTAs this week. And you're going to get some of the insider knowledge that I've learned throughout this off season, and some different quotes from different people about their first impressions on Mr. Anthony Richardson. So make sure you guys check that out tomorrow. As always, you can find our work at the Horseshoe Huddle website, horseshoehuddle.com, or feel free to go through the Sports Illustrated site and click on their Colts affiliate. But super pumped for that to get out there tomorrow.
Yeah, man. Make sure I'm gonna check that out after I get off work tomorrow. Always interested to read what some of your thoughts is. Although we had a kind of brief discussion about it before the show, I'm really excited to see the piece in its entirety. What's going on, y'all? I see people coming in. What up, Matt, Johnny, Jack? Appreciate y'all, man, and everybody else that's in the live right now. Today we have something special. We're gonna draft the top 5 most important Colts. Each of us are going to draft, well, I guess it'll be a total of 10 players. We're going to draft 5 apiece. We're going to flip the coin live to see who goes first. But before we get to that, just wanted to share some thoughts on OTAs. I know there's been some confusion out there. A lot of people haven't been able to see anything that's going on with the OTAs, and that's because the media is not allowed to be there until Thursday. So if you're wondering why it hasn't been many videos or anything being put up, that's the reason why. Tomorrow, you guys will get a lot more of that. We have some great media people that represent the Colts, and I'm sure they're going to be filling all of those videos on the timeline. I know we all want to see Anthony Richardson. Destin has heard some things. I'll just share briefly what I've heard so far. And that's Anthony Richardson's progressing well. I was telling Destin before the show, my guy hit me and was saying the leap he's made mentally from rookie minicamp to OTAs has been outstanding as far as getting the playbook down and getting the verbiage down. That was something that was a big part of what they wanted him to have down pat before, they come to naming who a starter was going to be or anything like that and determining his playing time. He has to get that verbiage down. But he's progressing well in those areas. And they say the timing that he's showing with some of these veterans is really good. Josh Downs has been a standout so far from what I heard as well. Him and Anthony Richardson carried that momentum they had from rookie minicamp to OTAs. But the most outstanding part is him just getting to work with these veterans, and they're already making a solid connection. I mean, there's been some misses. I don't want to lie to you guys like it's been all great, but that's to be expected.
100% completion percentage. Word on the street that he didn't even throw an incompletion in the hotel parking lot when when Josh Downs and him were playing catch. He has a undroppable ball. That's the word on the streets.
I heard he shattered the passenger window. Let me not put that out there because that'll be a story of
It was
if I.
mine. I'm not pressing charges.
I bet you're not. But yeah,
I'm also
those are
not
some of
fixing
the
the window.
those are some of the things I heard regarding AR. Dusty, you had anything that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I
Are
mean,
you saving it for your piece tomorrow?
I mean, I put a lot of stuff into that, so make sure you guys check it out for tomorrow to hear some thoughts from some people that are not us, and that have been live in person, seeing it, hearing it, talking to him directly. But basically, all I'm going to say is they are very pleased with what they've seen so far. Not even just the on-field product, but just the
Mm.
person that has been in the room, the person that's been in the building, the person that has been soaking in what they are giving him. They are very pleased with that aspect of it so far, which when you're in phase one of the offseason, which is where we're at, for those of you that aren't sure. But when you're in this phase, like, that's really all it's going to be about. It's going to be about soaking in this playbook, soaking in this new coaching staff's nuances and things like that. And so far, so good for Anthony Richardson and the new brass. So we'll see when everything gets actually started. We get to throw pads on and we can start seeing things a little bit more realistically. But I don't think anything could be going better at this point.
Yeah, man, that's all you want to see at this point. You don't want to put too much on the kid's plate. You don't want to overwhelm him. You just want him to carry himself the right way. You want to see if that character that you scouted and spent all that time studying, you want to see how real that is. And when you get it in your building, when you see it from the top, it's infectious, man. So uh, I'm excited. I'm excited. I've heard nothing that deters me from the player I thought he could be. He looked like he's handling the pressure well, and that's what has me the most excited. All right, Destin, you ready to flip this coin?
I am. So do we want to give a little breakdown of exactly it is that we're doing before we flip this coin?
Okay, me and Destin are drafting the top 5 most important players this season for the Indianapolis Colts. Not the top 5 best players, but just the
Most
most
important.
important. It's a big difference, who's the most critical to this team's success this season. And I'm gonna flip the coin live on air.
So if we win the coin toss, do we get to pick first or second, or whoever wins it is first?
Well, you get to pick whether you
Okay.
want to be first or second. I can't imagine you want to be second, but
Hey, you get snake. You get 2 and 3. I get
you
it.
want to snake? Okay, we can snake.
Oh, we got
You want to
to. We
snake?
got we got to
Okay,
we got to snake it. We got to keep it fair here up in here.
okay. I'm good with that.
All right. Do
Heads.
you want me to call it?
Yeah, tails.
All right.
I was just showing the people. I'm
I
gonna catch it.
gotta. I'm gonna go tails.
You are correct. Tails. It is tails. Do you want to go first or do you want to go second?
Do I want to go first? Put your boy on the clock.
Okay. Okay. I think I know who you're talking about. I think I know who you're going with. Go
So
ahead. Just
just
make it
gonna
interesting.
throw this on the screen, just kind of follow along. Um, This is how we're gonna roll it. So I'm gonna go first. The Rashad will get to
Mm-hmm.
go second, third, and vice versa. And
Mm-hmm.
then when we make these picks, we're gonna kind of just talk a little bit about it. The other person who
Yeah,
doesn't draft them can also talk about this person, and we'll also have to
absolutely.
talk about if we think any of these picks are stupid. I feel like we're gonna be in unison on the first one though. Just a guess, but for the first pick, I'm gonna go a guy that I think is gonna start week one, snap one on offense, and that's Anthony Richardson. I think he is going to end up being the starter here in Indianapolis. I think he is further along than I think some people were expecting, and I think he is so detrimental to not just 2023 but the Colts future that they are going to want to get this started and get him on. I think with the way that the offense works and how Shane Steichen is going to mold the offense around the signal caller, I think it's important to get everyone else on the same page, get the guy that's going to be the long-term quarterback in this offense that you're going to build with. And I think there's just so many other questions around it of, do you pay Michael Pittman? Do you pay Jonathan Taylor? Do you need so-and-so offensive lineman help? Like, to me, the only way you're going to find out what you need is by putting the guy in there that you're actually building this offense around. So I think Anthony Richardson's going to be the week one starter. And with the pick at 4, with how they built this offensive staff, with all of the importance that they put on this selection and how much time we've waited for
Yeah.
the heir to the Andrew Luck throne, I think he is the most important Colt for 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, this was the easy one. Anthony Richardson is the only player on the roster that you wouldn't care if you didn't win a game as long as he flashed and showed superstar potential. You'll be perfectly fine with it. The goal is for Anthony Richardson to develop. That's priority number one for this fan base right now and for the organization. It should be priority number one for the fan base. I know it's probably not, and people will be mad. If we winning games, but Anthony Richardson looks terrible, I would be terrified. Me personally, if we were winning despite Anthony Richardson and not because of Anthony Richardson, I personally would be terrified. That's an easy pick. His development is numero uno for me, so that was an easy choice. So since Destin got to pick first,
Tails, tails never fails.
I anybody that know me know I have two core philosophies. I have core principles: throwing the ball and making sure you tackle the guy that's throwing the ball. So my first pick is going to be someone that has the responsibility of protecting Anthony Richardson's blind side. My first pick is going to be Bernard Ryman at number one. I think he is the most, aside from Anthony Richardson, I think he's the most important coach to this season. We see what not having a good left tackle can do. We have nightmares of not having a good left tackle, and it literally wrecks your season. The Colts were in shambles when they didn't have a left tackle, a la Matt Pryor from last season. It destroyed everything the Colts tried to do. Left tackle is not a position you can mitigate because other people on your offensive line is good. Like you have to have a guy that can play at that position. And when you have a rookie quarterback, it's just crucial that he's not, feeling pressure from that blind side. It's important that he can trust that guy that's assigned with protecting him on that side. And as good as Anthony Richardson is, if he has a guy that he can't trust that left tackle, I think it's pretty worthless. But Bernard Ryman's a guy who started to look really, really good in the last half of the season. I say the last 6 games, if you want to be exact. I think has the potential to be a flat stud. Like the type of athlete he is, or the promise that he showed. If he gets a little bit stronger, I'm telling you, man, this guy has the potential to be a solid starter for long term. I don't think he's an all Pro Bowl type of guy, but I think he can be a solid long term starter, a plus starter for your team for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean Bernard Ryman is who I had at two. I'm a nerd. For anybody that doesn't know me, I made a big board for this. Once me and Rashad decided this was going to be what we did, so I did have a big board to kind of prepare for this. I had Bernard Ryman at two. I was kind of hoping that Shaad was going to go a different route here if we did end up in this order, and that I would end up getting him in the round two as well because I thought that would just be such a stack. But this is who I would have went if I was from Rashad's case after Anthony Richardson was on off the board too. But like I said earlier, Anthony Richardson's success means so much to this franchise going forward. And right now, the amount of like the game of the NFL, I've said this before on this show, is all about where you can get advantages, whether that is in a skill wise, whether that's in a cap wise. Like it's all about where you have advantages on your roster. And the Colts are in a spot right now where the fact that they're going to have rookie contracts at quarterback and left tackle going forward is a clear advantage that they can take advantage of. So if Bernard Ryman can work out and be the left tackle of the future, to have a guy that's going to be on that type of deal for 3 more years is going to be very, very valuable to this franchise and to Anthony Richardson's development. So I definitely think that's the right selection.
Yeah, man. And with my next pick, I'm probably going to confuse a lot of people. Well, not confuse a lot of people, but I'm going to the other side of the ball, and I told you I have core principles. On offense we throw the ball, and on defense we rush the pass. I'm going with Quiddy Pay. Quiddy Pay is so important this season. There is no Yannick Ngakoue. There is no veteran as I guess Samson Ebukam, if you want to call him. But the pressure's on Quiddy. Quiddy has to be the ace. He has to develop into an ace pass rusher for the Indianapolis Colts. This is year 3. This is when the jump usually occurs. I thought he played really well last season when he was healthy, and that's the problem. He's had injury history his first 2 years, but when he's on the field, he's a true difference maker. Outstanding against the run. He's been that since his rookie year. That was the selling point on him. coming out of Michigan, he was an awesome run defender and has been developing as a pass rusher. And I thought he took steps in those directions for last season. Like if you look at his pressure rate, his pass rush win rate, it was all above average. And he just has to continue to build on that. I think this is the year, hopefully, that he puts it all together, finally has a healthy season, and becomes that pass rusher that the coach just been missing. Ballard swung at this position and missed several years. We could run through the list of names, but hopefully, finally, Quiddy can develop into that because it's been a long time since the Colts have had that. And if Buckner can be the guy he is in the middle, along with Grover, along with Dio on the other edge, I think if Quiddy can develop into that A+ pass rush, this group can be a really good group moving forward.
So I feel like someone leaked my draft board to Rashad. Bernard Rive and Quiddy Pay were my 2 and 3 as well. I think Quiddy, like you said, when healthy, has just been a difference maker. And we're approaching that point where we're going to have to make a decision on that year 5 deal. Not this season, but next they're going to have to make that decision. So this is a big year, not necessarily a contract year, but it's the year in which he has to prove whether or not he is going to get that 5th-year option, which
Mm-hmm.
the Colts have been one to decline 5th-year options if they feel the need to do so. Malik Hooker being a recent pick that had his 5th-year option decline, and he is now playing elsewhere. So the Colts are not afraid to do that, and I think this is going to be a big year for Quiddy Pay, and I'm excited to see it. They're going to be running with the youth on the edge, and I think this is going to be a big opportunity to kind of see who Quiddy Pay and what he's made of a little bit. I was hoping one of those two would be this pick here. Didn't end up falling in my favor there. So I'm going to stay on the offensive side of the ball. And to quote Shane Steichen, our fearless leader, we are going to throw
To score points,
to score. We're going to run
to
to
win.
win. And while Anthony Richardson can't do both of those, I'm going to go ahead and take Jonathan Taylor, who obviously the news broke today that he finally has signed with his new um, agency. That was
Mm-hmm.
one of the dominoes that we were hearing was kind of not in the way, but the domino that needed to fall before the Colts and Taylor could get into real negotiations.
Yeah.
A big one being that he signed with an agency that also represents Shaquille Leonard. So they're gonna have somebody that just worked with this brass and getting an extension done just previously. So there's already a built relationship there, which is a nice plus for the Colts. But Jonathan Taylor in the run game, like I said with Bernard Ryman earlier, the Colts not having to pay at quarterback, not having to pay at left tackle, makes it to where you can pay at running back. You can be one of the few teams that does, and that extension can kind of line up to where when you would have to pay Anthony Richardson in a sense. So the timing is very good to extend a guy like Jonathan Taylor, and I think the deal is going to end up getting done. I think if you asked me, even I think Jonathan Taylor ends up getting extended before the first game of the season's played.
Yeah, I think he has a high chance of getting extended before the first game play. I actually think Michael Pittman does as well. More on that later. But Jonathan Taylor, man, I mean, he goes against everything, all my principles as far as paying a running back. But he's a special type talent, and like you said earlier, I think it alleviates some of that. When you have a quarterback that's on a rookie deal, it allows you to just prioritize surrounding him with talent regardless of where the talent is. You can typically spend more on the offensive line. You can spend a little more on the receiving room. You can spend more at the running back position when you have a quarterback that gives you that type of flexibility, which is why rookie contracts are so important. And it's been an Achilles heel of the Colts to not have one of those since they've had Andrew Luck. Going out and paying Jacoby Brissett before he became the starter, and then paying Phillip and Carson and Matt Ryan. The Colts was always shelling out top of the line money, and the Colts be paying a good deal of money to the quarterbacks this year because they're still paying Matt Ryan, who's going to be over there on CBS. But comparing that to what they've paid in the past, now that you have a guy who as dynamic as Jonathan Taylor is, if he can get back to what he was 2 seasons ago, then you're going to have to pay him at least $14-15 million. I'm under the assumption. but he's worth it, for what Anthony Richardson needs right now. Just a guy to take some of that pressure off. He won't be tasked with doing all the heavy lifting. You have a guy that can, you know, create explosive plays by just handing them the ball, which is a quarterback's best friend, especially when you're a rookie. So I'm all for that move. I think that's a really good pick.
Appreciate it.
Oh, who
Appreciate
you
it.
going with now? Pressure's on now.
So the next one, I had two
You can't pick
names.
all offense, Destin. You can't. You
Yeah, I
can't
say I
do it.
had two names here, but I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go who I believe is the best overall player that is currently on the Colts, and I'm going to go DeForest Buckner. Big reason
Hmm.
why I'm going him here. So we talked about it a little bit with Quiddy Pay and the fact that they're going to be rolling with the youth movement on the defensive line. DeForest Buckner is really the lone. I mean, they bring in Sampson. So that adds a vet in the room as well. But DeForest
Hmm.
Buckner has been here. DeForest Buckner is the leader on that defense. And right now with Shaquille Leonard, who is battling this injury bug, and we're trying to figure out when he's going to be back to 100%, he has to be the vocal and physical leader on that defensive side of the ball right now. So I think looking at him, I think he means a lot to the development of all of these defensive linemen, not just the interior guys, but the edge rushers and the amount of presence that he can take away from them on the line. I also think a big one is I expect they're going to use him in a very versatile way this year on the defensive line with the lack of veterans there. I don't feel like we're going to be seeing DeForest leave the field very often.
Right.
Knock on wood for any injuries or anything like that, but I feel like he's going to be on the field near 100% of the defensive snaps this year as you get. So I think he's very important to the team success. I think he's even more important to the overall success of this defense.
Yeah, it's very few guys on the defensive line in the NFL that changes the math for you, that commands a certain type of attention. DeForest Buckner is one of those kind of guys. DeForest Buckner is so dominant. He can get the rest of the defensive line one-on-one situations because he commands that type of attention. So, it's crucial. I think it's absolutely pivotal that DeForest Buckner is out there at all times because like I say, Quiddy gets those one on ones. He creates those one on ones for Dio and Samson as well. Whenever Dio kicks to the inside and Samson is out there in pass rush situations, he's just that good. And he's still playing at a high level, very very high level. The defense was really solid for most of the season last year until they absolutely fell apart at the end of the season, just from wear and tear. But DeForest was still at the top of his game. You go back in time. I know people like to say we should have took a quarterback with that first round pick that we traded for DeForest Buckner, but I'm perfectly fine with the way that played out. DeForest Buckner has been a top 3, top 5 defensive tackle since he got here, and he's still playing at that level. So I'm not mad at that pick. Now I get 2 picks. I know who
Getting
they
two
are. I'm
picks.
just I'm just trying to see which one I want to go with first. Let's just stick with defense. This guy, I know you said DeForest Buckner is the best player on the defense, and I might be inclined to agree with you, only because this guy missed basically the entire season last year. But the year before that, this guy was a legit defensive player of the year candidate. He forced 12 turnovers in one season by himself. Just video game shit like what we saw from him the year before his last healthy season. I know some people say he's got paid and now he just doesn't care. But that player is Shaq Leonard. Shaq Leonard, what he does for this team and what he does for this defense is something like you can't even put a value on it by just looking in a stat book. He's the emotional leader for these guys. One of the smartest guys on the defense. He plays at 110% at all times. He pushed his injury last year just because he wanted to be out there with those guys. He did more damage than good, showing up. He wasn't the same player at all. You could clearly see he was still affected. But I mean, even go back to 2 years ago, when he forced those 12 turnovers, how many times we seen him catch interceptions or pick up a fumble recovery, and he's literally running on one leg. That's how bad he wanted to play that year. He literally wrecked the league playing on one leg. That's how talented this young man is. He's truly a special type of player. I don't believe in paying off ball linebackers, but the Colts do a lot of things that make me go against my beliefs. Paying running backs, paying off ball linebackers, you know, paying guards. But Shaq Leonard absolutely deserved to get the bag. I think he deserved to reset the linebacker market at the time because he's that special of a talent. The skill set is very unique. You can't compare him to any other player in the league. I believe he has the most turnovers forced from a linebacker position in NFL history through their first 5 seasons. He is just a ridiculous player, man. The way he plays, the edge he plays with, I love everything about him. And hopefully we can get him back to 100%. I just don't know, man. I just don't know. Hopefully he's the same guy. I just don't know if he will be.
Yeah, I mean, Shaquille Leonard, when he is on the field, has a talent at taking the football away for an off-ball linebacker that honestly we just haven't seen. Like the consistency that he does it with, to where because what he does seems like is going to get portrayed in the media and when he does it as that he gets these punch outs. He's a, like lucky break for the Colts defense, but you can't call it a lucky break when you do it consistently.
Exactly.
Like his
Exactly.
ability to take the football away was muchly missed this past year. The defense that I feel like was improved in the fact of the presence that they had and the fact that if you asked offenses which defense they'd like to play against, whether it was the 21 or 22 defense, the 21 defense I think offenses would have chose to play against over
Mm-hmm.
the 22 defense. But if you could combine the turnovers from 2021 with the overall just physical nature of the 22 defense, like that's a nasty group right there. And
Yeah.
Shaquille Leonard missing the entire year was a big part of it. So him coming back, him being there is a huge need for this team without a doubt. It'll just be about what is this version of Shaquille Leonard now, and if it's anywhere near 100% of what we've seen in the past, that's one of the best players in the NFL.
Yeah, man. And the Colts don't have that safety valve like they had last season, as far as they was able to pull Zaire Franklin, pull that lever. They don't have quite that lever. I know we still have EJ Speed, but with Bobby Okereke moving on, if we wasn't to have Leonard, I think that'd be a big blow for this defense. But my fourth pick, going back to the offensive side of the ball, Anthony Richardson cannot be successful if he doesn't have a number one receiving option. This guy is a guy that's
Who's the number one receiving option, Rashad?
we're not doing that. It's Michael Pittman. We're absolutely not doing that. Alec Pierce is definitely the number two receiving option with the Indianapolis Colts. Michael Pittman, a guy who caught 100 balls, I believe, for the first time in his career, or 99, or some close to that. He didn't crack he didn't crack 1,000 yards, which I think is just lets you know the type of offense that the Indianapolis Colts had.
99 catches
Yeah,
for 925 yards and 4 touchdowns last year.
the guy didn't even average 10 yards per reception, which is just, it's not his fault. He did what he could. This offense was terrible. Matt Ryan, Nick Foles, Sam Ellingoat could not push the ball down the field at all. We saw what Michael Pittman did a couple years ago with Carson Wentz when he was more of a downfield threat and more of a deep threat. I think he can get back to that with Anthony Richardson, especially with Shane Steichen. This is an offense that's going to be predicated on verticality and pushing the ball down the field. Anthony Richardson probably only completes maybe 15 passes per game, but 5 to 7 of those are going to be past 20 yards. Like he's going to push the ball down the field in this offense. A lot of play action, a lot of shot plays whenever you get one-on-ones on those outsides. And Michael Pittman is going to have to be that reliable guy that Anthony Richardson feels comfortable enough to go to in those one-on-one situations. I think Alec Pierce will be that too, but I think Mike just being a veteran and probably constantly communicating with Anthony Richardson, letting him know what he's seeing out there, is going to be a big help for his development and a guy I think he can lean on early and often. And plus, I think Michael Pittman is just one of those guys that kind of gets a bad rep among Colts Nation. People always have these debates. I'm sure they'll have it again, whether he's a true number one or number two. I really don't care about that. I think he's a good player. And I know the extension is coming. I know the Colts want to get it done. From everything I've heard, they really want to get that deal done. And I don't know what the number is going to be for him, but he's a vital part of this offense and he's a vital part of this team moving forward. So hopefully they get that figured out and we see a different Michael Pittman this season than we saw last season.
Yeah, I was just joking around. Michael Pittman's the best receiver on this team, and I honestly don't know if many receivers would have been able to have 1,000 yards in the pass game the Colts had last year.
No.
It would have been very difficult. Is all I'm gonna say. Like I'm not trying to say the best of the best couldn't have found a way. I'm not gonna say Justin Jefferson wouldn't have been a 1,000 yard receiver here. I'm not trying to say that too much, but I think the amount of receivers that could have put up an 1,000 yard season with the offensive situation that has going on last year, you could probably count on one hand. And that's just a notion of how bad the offense was this past year and how bad of just a situation it was. Not even just statistically, just overall morale, overall vibe. Just it was a bad, bad situation. So I don't put it on Michael Pittman as much there. I think this year's a big one for him, whether a deal gets done or not preseason. I feel like this is going to be the year that he can kind of cement himself here or there and being that number one receiver for a rookie quarterback because in NFL recent history, we've seen that if a guy on the roster isn't getting it done as the number one for a young quarterback, teams are eager to go get it. So if Michael Pittman is not that answer, it is not out of the question of thought that the Colts would make a move to go get that said receiver. I mean, we saw the Bills do it for Josh Allen and go get Stephon Diggs. We saw the Eagles do it for Jalen Hurts and go get AJ Brown. This is a recent phenomenon that we're seeing. So Michael Pittman, if he doesn't want that addition to come, I feel like he has to go up and say that I am that Stephon Diggs. I am that AJ Brown. You have that here. You don't need to go elsewhere. And this is not a situation where your mom says we have McDonald's at home. This is a situation where I am that top tier guy that you want and that you have. Don't go elsewhere to get it. So I think this is a big year for Michael Pittman.
All right, Destin, you got to close out your draft.
All right. I mean, I'm gonna go Quentin Nelson first. I'm gonna
Okay.
go Quentin Nelson first. So Bernard Ryman being the blind side going first, that was imperative because of the spot that he plays. Quentin Nelson's going to go here because he, on an offense that did not have an identity this past year, on an offense that has a lot of youth, Quentin Nelson feels like that leader. Been here, one of the best in the league at his position, is going to have a more prominent role and more prominent responsibilities in this offensive line system that's going to be run here than this pass regime. So I think we're going to see a very, very motivated Quentin Nelson. I think we're going to see a very, very aggressive Quentin Nelson. I'm pumped for it. And I think when you have a young quarterback back there, any advantage you can have up front is a big one. And Quentin Nelson in most matchup is an advantage for you. So Quentin Nelson's success is going to mean success for Anthony Richardson, which is going to mean success for the Colts. So I'm super excited to see Nelson getting pulled a little bit more. We got to see it a little bit early in his career, and we've kind of went away from it the last couple of seasons where we haven't been able to see him moving that direction as much. But I think he's going to be active. I hope he's been on the treadmill this offseason, being ready to run because I sense that the Colts this new system the Colts are going to run, that Quentin Nelson's going to be moving laterally more than previous.
Yeah, I mean Quentin Nelson, man. At the top of his game is the best guard, the best interior lineman in the NFL. He definitely was hobbled by injury last year. Wasn't playing at 100%. I think he is healthy now. Uh, he's a guard at the end of the day, so it's only so much he can actually affect the game, which is why he's down here at 4 and not in first or second round because he is good enough to be in the first. You can argue Quentin Nelson is the best player on the Colts team, easily too, by his resume, his accolades, what he's accomplished in the league. But the fact that he's a guard, and he only could affect the game in so many ways. Steichen is going to weaponize that, and I think this will be the first time it actually really gets weaponized since he's been in the league. Steichen's going to put him in situations where he's out on the move, he's out in space, and that's when you really get to see his athleticism shine. And I think it's going to be a big boost for Jonathan Taylor on outside runs and Anthony Richardson on quarterback design runs. Plus, he'll help keep the pressure up the middle, mitigated. He's gonna do a great job with that because that's what Quentin Nelson does. And hopefully, for the first time, in a couple years, he'll be able to focus strictly on his position and not trying to help out a guy that needs help on the side of him at the tackle position. I, I like the draft pick. Who's you going with last?
Okay, so I'm gonna say the two people that I've been battling back and forth on all day for who I wanted this last pick to be.
One of them better
Um,
not be
the
who
on,
I'm
the
actually
only
taking.
reason I'm saying it is because I that second person I don't think you are gonna pick anyway, but I at least want to bring it up because I was very close to doing it. So first, I'm gonna say the person I'm gonna take is Julius Brents. That's who I'm gonna take here in round 5. Now, the person that I have been battling taking instead has been Darius Rush all day. Going back and forth on it.
Wow.
So the reason I'm going to go Julius Brents is because the draft at hand is most important Colts for 2023. Um, I think Darius Rush has a higher ceiling than Julius Brents, and we've said this on here before. But I love the idea of these two being a long-term combo 1-2 corner in this for this team going forward. And I think they have high upside with both. But anytime a rookie is drafted and the room is so thin that like the Colts corner room is, and the expectation to start early is there, you're a very important part. And I think after quarterback, after left tackle, the hardest position to play in professional football is at corner because of the level of play that is at receiver in this day and age in the league. So Julius Brents is going to come in, most likely having to start day one, most likely going to be the number one outside corner day one. So he's going to see some of the best receivers in the NFL. And that's year one. Like he's going to get thrown into the fire. So I think that is why I'm going to go Julius Brents here, even though a big part of me was battling taking Darius Rush here. But I think Julius Brents is going to be the number one corner in 2023. So I'm going to go Julius Brents, but I'm pumped to see the duo over the longevity of the future either way.
Um, and the way we've been doing this, is normally now's the time where I would talk about Julius Brents as well. But I think you hit that out the park. I'm going to take this time instead because I know Coach Nation is going to have something to say about this. But the reason I can't speak for Destin, and Destin can chime in and say if this was his reason. But the reason Isaiah Rodgers is not going on my list, I don't know about Destin, is because I think we like Isaiah Rodgers more than Gus Bradley actually likes Isaiah Rodgers.
Gus likes those big-bodied, long corners, and Isaiah does not fit it. I mean, Isaiah played in this defense. I think last year was the best skill-wise season for Isaiah Rodgers. So I do
Yes.
want to say that.
He had an
But
outstanding season in this
yeah,
system.
I
But
agree.
but it was unexplainable for Fayshawn to continue to get snaps, and I know eventually Rodgers won it over. But anybody could have saw that Rodgers was playing at a couple levels higher than Brandon Fayshawn, but it's just not what Gus Bradley plays. Like he's the opposite of what Gus Bradley values at the position. Like this should be Isaiah Rodgers should be the number one corner coming into this season. Julius Brents and Darius Rush should be battling for CB2, to be honest. But it's a possibility that both of those guys can end up being CB1 and CB2 when the season comes, especially around mid-season, I'll say, because early on you're probably going to want to play with Rodgers because he has the most experience. Rodgers should be the number one corner, but I think we like him and we're higher on him than Gus Bradley actually is. And this is not going off what Gus Bradley has told me or anything like that. It's just going by his actions.
Shaad's actually reading off his phone right now from text messages from Mr. Bradley himself.
Now, because I
Gus
know
decided
people will put it together. His brother did coach with Gus Bradley. Maybe he got that from Gus Bradley. Nah, but Gus Bradley didn't tell me any of this. But I'm just going off his actions. So
Gus
that's
didn't
why
have to
Isaiah
tell us.
Rodgers did
His
on him.
actions told us. So I mean, if you're playing Brandon Facyson over Isaiah Rodgers in his play last year,
Yes,
I feel like the likelihood of a second round pick and Julius Brents playing over him is pretty likely. Like
exactly.
that's how I look at it. That's how you see it as well. But I think there's an element to this that could work out for everyone involved. Because if Julius Brents and Darius Rush knock it out of the park on the outside, Kenny Moore is on a contract year on the inside. Isaiah Rodgers can cement himself as that inside corner of for the longevity of the future, which is a
Hmm.
starter on this
Hmm.
team. It should be its
Yep.
own position on Pro Bowl rosters. It should be its own position on All Pro rosters. But that's a story, a topic for another day that it's a conversation we've beaten to it as a dead horse almost at this point. But
Yeah.
there is opportunities for this to work out for everybody. But I went Julius Brents for similar reasons that Rashad just shared over a guy like Isaiah Rodgers, and why I consider a guy like Darius Rush even over Rodgers.
Yeah. Okay. To round out the draft, my last pick is going to be somebody that I didn't expect to pick. He was kind of like going to be my honorable mention, but I'm gonna do it, man. I'm gonna do it. Jelani Woods is going to be the last pick, rounding out my roster for the most important Colts of 2023. Let's face it, we saw the whole Jack Doyle left last season at the tight end position from a blocking standpoint, and even from a safety valve reliability standpoint in the passing game. Uh, Jelani Woods, with the 19 tight ends we have on the roster, he's the guy with the highest ceiling. I think he has the best capability to be the most well-rounded out of all of those guys. He does have some elite physical traits. He can be a star. He flashed a few times last season, had monster games, but he just didn't put it all together as far as the blocking side of things. If he can become more engaged and more physical at the point of attack, clean up some technique things, and hand placement is just was awful last season as far as a blocker, but the ceiling for this guy is through the roof, man. We saw what he can do as far as a receiver. We know the measurables, the physicality. He has the potential to be a very special player. And Anthony Richardson's a guy, man, who does miss, and when he misses high, which might play right into Jelani Woods' hands, which might play into the hands of most of these receivers. I think it's just set up for him to have a big year this year. Moelle Cox is in a. I was about to say Moelle contract. Moelle Cox is in a contract year, so the Colts can save some money if they move on from him. There's a couple other tight ends. I like Granson a lot. I think he's the best separator out of all of these tight ends. He has a certain role as the F tight end. I think that he can pretty much solidify. But I think Jelani Woods can become a down in and down out tight end that this team can rely on. That has big play potential, something we haven't seen from the position since the Eric Ebron season a few almost half a decade ago. Feel like.
So I like the pick. I like the pick a lot. I'm glad Jelani made himself on this spreadsheet, and I think he deserves it. I think Jelani Woods. Overall, let's just backtrack here. I think the tight end position in the NFL, the discrepancy at it is probably larger than any position in the National Football League, because you have your elite tight ends, and then the drop basically goes to average tight ends. Elite, average, bad. Like there's three categories of tight ends in the National Football League.
Yeah.
So if you have a tight end on your roster that has the upside to enter that top threshold of the elite category, that's important. That's saying something, because that's an area that just most teams are not going to have. I mean, that elite threshold right now has Travis Kelsey, has George Kittle. I'd say Mark Andrews is on there. And then you have a bunch of guys looking in. I mean, that's it. Like
Yeah, because you have a bunch
there's
of
guys
guys
who are
that,
good,
yeah, the
but
guys that you're waiting to take that next step but haven't did it yet.
yeah, like the TJ Hawkinsons, the Kyle
Hawkinson, Kyle
Pitts,
Pitts.
like there's guys that you want to enter that threshold, but they're just not there. I mean, TJ Hawkinson got traded for a reason, in interdivision for a reason. I think he has a lot of talent, but definitely not in that same threshold of those three names that I just said. I
Yeah.
think Darren Waller at one point was in that threshold.
Hmm.
I think he is a little bit older in age and has fallen down a little bit there. We'll see how he goes in New York and see if he can kind of get back to that element. But there's another group of young guys. I mean, Dallas Goddard, a little bit older, I guess, than most guys that when they came in the league there.
He
But
will probably be the next guy, I think.
I think so too. I think Goddard would be the guy that I would say is on the outside looking in. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, I think people have expectations that Kyle Pitts is going to get there,
Right.
but definitely not there yet. So Jelani Woods has that ability to get into that threshold though in the right system, in the right development
Mm-hmm.
schemes, and his size, his speed, his ability as a end zone threat. Like the guy is has the potential of being great, and having that type of weapon grow with a guy like Anthony Richardson, he's super important. And I'm excited to kind of see how he's used this year because last year the offense as a whole, like we said earlier, was not in a great spot. But some of the best moments were when Jelani Woods was being used.
Yeah, man, that draft was actually a lot of fun. I know we have another one coming. We're not gonna spoil it for the people. We have another one coming in a couple of weeks that we're gonna do, but you're gonna win because you have Anthony Richardson. That's just how it goes. You know, whoever has Anthony Richardson, they're gonna have the better team. They're gonna have the most. They're
I
gonna get the
mean,
most votes
it,
on
it
anything at
probably
this point.
also it probably also doesn't help you that if we went off a list of best Colts just overall, I probably have the top three talent wise Colts right now.
Only because Shaq isn't healthy though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like right
Oh,
now,
like
yeah,
today,
DeForest
yeah.
Buckner would probably be one. Taylor Nelson are probably interchangeable. I'd go Nelson 2, Taylor 3, but
Yeah,
those are probably the consensus top three players on the Colts. So me getting those three in the middle after Anthony Richardson helps.
yeah. I swung with upside. I mean, I went with
I get it.
unproven people that should make a leap.
I
Bernard
think being
Ryman.
picked two is rough. I think being picked two here is a little bit rough because
Yeah,
I feel like you
for
have
sure.
to swing at some of the young guys after not getting Richardson, and then that just leaves some of these really good vets right there.
Yeah,
Because I would
you
have
got
went
the fan
Ryman and
favorite
Pay.
though.
I would have went Ryman and Pay as well.
Yeah, and people's mad at Shaq as well right now. So you
People are
know how
mad at
that go.
everything.
People are always
But
mad.
I will make sure to drop a picture of this for you guys tomorrow. But
Hmm.
make sure you guys let us know in the comments of this YouTube video who you think won this draft. Please leave all Rashad comments at home. We don't want those. Uh,
Hater.
make sure you guys hit that subscribe button right after you comment who you think had the better draft. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you go check out horseshoehuddle.com for all things Indianapolis Colts, some of the articles that we're doing. Just want to plug it one more time. Pretty big piece for me coming out tomorrow, one that I've
Hmm.
worked on the entire off season. So I'm really excited to hear your guys' thoughts on it. But I have a piece dropping tomorrow that's going to cover everything that I heard from inside that building, people that are close to that building, from the start of the Colts head coaching search all the way up to Colts OTAs this week. So a good amount of information is going to be in that thing for tomorrow. So make sure you guys are checking that out.
Hey man, and thanks again, like Destin said, for tuning into the show. We will see you guys next week. Peace.